that I'm comfortable with in speaking about. Obviously, we're faced with a lot of moral, ethical dilemmas in life, and we could have a position or a view on it, and so on. And our Christian faith obviously informs that. So we all have a morality to us. We all have a position, whether we like to admit it or not. But to speak about it as a topic requires a lot of preparation. So the reason why I felt comfortable is because I started to prepare a course in this, because I was surprisingly asked to teach something like this. So I was working through a textbook on the topic, and we have a God willing, a series of talks that we could do. Lots of things in bioethics. This one is procreation versus reproduction, but then the topics go on from there to genetic screening, obviously abortion, suicide, euthanasia, who decides at the time of death, the doctor, the family, or the person. And there's lots of topics. There's a lot of topics in bioethics. So I thought to get us started from the beginning of life, obviously. But before I do that, I just want to introduce the basics or the foundations to the discipline of Christian bioethics, because it's important. So we all know that we have commandments, we have laws, we have rules, we have all of that, and that's very clear. But from a academic perspective or a Christian bioethic perspective, how do you define it? How do we come to understand what the fundamental truths are? What are these things that we're even talking about? A lot of times we see a lot of arguments, right? Online, we see a lot of discussions. We see people talk about like the conclusions of matters. But what is so important about ethics is to talk about what's at the foundation, what's fundamentally the position or the view or the arguments that people have, right? So it's really about asking the right questions. I'm sure you've heard this before. We need to ask the right questions so that we could arrive at the right solutions and conclusions. So I want to say that our views or our identity, our worldview, has a lot to do with this point. It's not just an intellectual thing. This is not just like do a simple mathematical thing and it equals this number. This is very complex. Why? Because we're talking about a human person that's very complex, has so much more than just intelligence. We're dealing with things beyond just intelligence. We're dealing with the logic, the emotions, the spirit, the soul. We're dealing with culture. We're dealing with all of that. Anthropology. We're dealing with human behavior, and there's understandably gaps, right? Like even in this topic, you'll find that as we're talking about it, you'll see how even within culture, sometimes there are things that are so shameful or so honorable, and they're the same thing within the decision that's trying to be made. You'll see how I get to this point. But what I'm trying to say is there's gaps. There's a lot that maybe we don't take into consideration when we're dealing with such topics like procreation and reproduction. You may be saying, why are you going to talk about both procreation and reproduction? We'll get to that, but just hold on to the idea of today as a topic. I just want to give this introduction just to get us going. So we have to sort of define the playing field. Lots of times when we get into these arguments or these debates, we find ourselves losing because we didn't realize how we were pigeonholed or like, put in a corner to answer a certain way. So we have to define the playing field, and we have to understand basically how not to lose the argument. Now, in philosophy, in theology, in ethics, these are all intersecting in this topic. There's something called epistemology. Anyone know what epistemology is? Epistemology is the study of how we know what we know. It's a study of knowledge. It's how we could say this is accepted, or this is the basis or the foundation of such and such an idea or a topic. So to be strong in epistemology is a very important thing when it comes to Christian bioethics, because what are we even talking about in the first place? We have to understand all of that. How do we know what we know? How do we verify information? There's so much information. There's so many ideas. How could we even confirm what you're even saying or talking about? Is it factual, or is this some sort of opinion, or is this some sort of rare case or minority situation or whatever? We have to understand what we're talking about. So this is something so important also to the church, right? Christian epistemology. How do Christians know what they know, and how do they verify what they know? And that's something really important that we need to start getting skilled at. We have to be able to reference things. We have to be able to point at something and say, it's right there. This is valid. This is authentic. This is legitimate, and so on. So I want us to think about it like that right before we get started. Also, I want to say a few things about sort of ethics in general. And I'm just going to throw a story out for you right now, just to kind of get us warmed up with the topic. There's actually a nice video for it, but I didn't prepare a PowerPoint or anything audio-visual, but I'll just say the story. So imagine with me for a second, a robber, someone who wants to rob a house, has the intention to break a window and jump into the house through that window that he breaks, rob the house, and just flee. That's a typical plan, right? And so this person, targets a house. It's a nice house. It's an elderly woman, so she's not going to be able to make quick movements or attack or defend herself or anything. So he really profiled this house and this person, and his intention and his aim was to break in and steal and flee the scene. And so as he's breaking the window, he notices the woman, the owner, the old woman that owns the house, is actually passed out. She's fainted on the floor, not because of him breaking in and stealing, but apparently he got there right at the moment where there was a carbon monoxide situation and she was about to die. And he inadvertently saved her, in that because he broke the window, he allowed for the gases, the harmful gases, to escape. And so he fled the scene. He didn't rob her, but he indirectly saved her. So this is a dilemma. The question is this person to be rewarded or punished? And what are we basing this off of? What actually happened, or what his intentions were? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? This is obviously very rare and unique case, but it gives you a little scenario here about ethics. It gives you a sense of what was the intention and what was the reality. What actually happened here? Who here would say this person should be judged off of their intention? So if the police came and wanted to do a report and say, we want to collect damages or find the person who did this or who's responsible for it, some of you are like, yeah, I think,
breaking the window.
Yeah, just for the breaking in the window, but not an attempted murder, right? Because
or attempted robbery,
or even robbery, because he didn't rob anything. All he did was break the window. But his intention was to rob. Okay, exactly.
But he didn't stay on the scene, so it's not like they're going to judge him at all. They wouldn't know.
Yeah, but it's a moral dilemma, right? It goes to show you that sometimes we make decisions or we have intentions that end up being different. I could give you another story, and this also has a lot to do with sort of the integrity of our hearts when we are doing our work or something like that. There's another scenario, for example, a landscaper, who wants to make some money in the summer. This is say one of those college kids, not like a real professional landscaper. When you knock on the door and you say, "Hey, do you want me to cut your grass?" And they're like, "Sure, I'll give you $30. How long is it going to take you?" "Oh, 1 hour." So the guy says, "Sure." So what happens is the guy takes 30 minutes, and the owner of the house kind of leaves the $30 in the mailbox and just assumes that it took them 1 hour. This person could have the conscience to say, I did it in 30 minutes and I'm good. I earned that was the deal. Or this person could come back to the owner of the house and say, hey, it took me 30 minutes, here's $15. And so the owner could say, thank you for being so honest. Here's another 30. Why? Because you were honest. You get the idea? We could be rewarded because of our integrity, and we could also be punished because of our, our dishonesty or our cleverness in how we think of things or decide things. And the list goes on and on and on. There's another one called the altruistic personality. For example, there's a building on fire. A building is on fire, and the fire department arrives at the scene. They know that many lives will be lost, but they know on one particular floor of that building, there's a very expensive piece of art. Like, you could sell this piece of art and feed a third world country with it. So all the lives, should be what? Equal. But this person gets the idea, well, if I save this life, I would be what? Indirectly saving what? Hundreds of lives in a third world country, because we could sell this and donate it. You see how some people think or justify decisions or behaviors or actions. So a lot of times when we take these stories, this can apply also to Christian bioethics. We kind of justify our position and how we think and how we do things based off of these ideas. But when we think about it in these scenarios, we're quick to answer and say, no, that's not fair. That's not right. That doesn't make sense. How about these other people's lives? And it's such a sensitive point because we're talking about life and death matters. So Christian bioethics really is so sensitive because we're talking about life and death. Nobody's gonna say, yeah, dying is good. We should kill everybody. And especially around, these topics, the hard topic that I find so interesting. You can't beat around the bushes, abortion, but we're not there yet. But hopefully we'll get there and we'll talk about it. So I want to just highlight a term. There's a term called consequentialism. And in ethics, it basically means that the human brain cannot understand or calculate all the possible outcomes or possibilities. Can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting there and trying to calculate, if I do this, what will this be? Sometimes we try to play this sort of chess game with our life. Like, if I make this decision, this could happen, well, this could happen, well, that could happen. You can't possibly come up with all the scenarios or all the possibilities. It's called consequentialism. And this is a huge problem. Things are so complex that the human mind was never created, or the human person was never created to actually process and go through all these possibilities. So all I'm trying to say for now is that we have, again, a lot of different situations in life where you are in a sort of dilemma. We call it the moral dilemma. Have you ever seen Pope Shenouda talking about the story of his friend when they were younger and how he caught him cheating? I could get you the video and I'll share it with you. But it was a funny story because I believe this video was being played, or it was a recording of an event for Pope Shenouda's anniversary. So they invited a lot of his friends and people that knew him from when he was a youth. And apparently one of his close friends was caught cheating. So Pope Shenouda at the time was still a layman. He was not like a monk or a priest or a bishop or the patriarch. And so his friend was invited to kind of share this experience with the whole gathering of people. And he was jokingly saying yeah, Nazir, that's AKA Pope Shenouda, he ratted me out, or he told the teacher on me. But I ended up thanking him later. At the time, I didn't like him, right? But this is a classic moral dilemma, right? I have little kids now, and I'm sure we all pass through this. But Mom, Dad, what do I do? My friend was cheating. Should I tell, or should I confront my friend? Or and so we have such a hard time trying to make something like this make sense, because we know what's wrong, we know what's right, but then we're afraid of what the possibilities. Will this person stop being my friend? Will I be hated? Will I be accepted? What will happen to this person's future, and so on. So I want us just to say something about now moving from all these scenarios to now the very specific bioethics or healthcare ethics, or ethics that we need to apply in the context of life and death matters that revolve around topics like our health and our life. So I know a lot of us are doctors and we know this stuff, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what is the Hippocratic Oath? This is like a very classic thing. What is the Hippocratic Oath? Anyone know? Do no harm is one of them. The second one is to be beneficent, or to be good. And then the third one is what? Do no harm, right? And then the fourth one is to be big on autonomy or freedom, correct? These are the four principles. Maybe do no harm, and then beneficence, and then I said, yeah, or non-maleficence, which is, or so it's those three. Is it three? I believe it's three. So I repeated it twice. And then autonomy, freedom. So that's important. Why? Because it's for everyday people. This was produced by the Greeks, I believe. So even in a secular, non-theological world, these were principles. These were concepts that were so important. And so just remember the Hippocratic Oath as we go through this. All right. So let me just say something again really quickly before we dive in. This field of bioethics has been a very recent field. Why? Because the science and the technology is recent. So when we're talking about things like what do we do when it comes to organ, donating and stuff like that. Well, did you know the first successful kidney transplant was achieved in 54? So what? Not even what? Like it's close to what? Yeah, 80 years. This is not a very long time ago. The first heart transplant was achieved in 1967. Okay. Amniocentesis was performed in 1966. Okay, so we're talking 60s, 50s, 60s, and what? 70s. This wasn't like things that existed hundreds of years ago. So when you go and look at what the church fathers said, there's going to be no answers. There's going to be no answers. Why? Because the church fathers are ancient church fathers. Now you have science, technology, and advancement happening 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and look at what's happening today. It's a lot of stuff that can be happening. In 1973 was the case of Roe v. Wade. That decision was achieved in 73. The first living will law in the country happened in the state of California, and it was passed in 1976. Living will. First time, California, 1976. Okay, so many people believed that feeding tubes should be removed permanently from unconscious patients. And then in 1976, this kind of changed. And there's a case of this, as I said. So where is this all coming from? In World War II, there was German scientists that were doing experiments on human subjects. So it required human experimentation to know how to do all these things. And how we even arrived at these advancements and technologies are also very questionable. I don't know if you know about this or looked into this, but these are not conspiracy theories or ideas. There's real science and information if you look into it. There was a lot being done back in those days to actually know how to achieve those things at that time. So that's just something very important to understand. Now, bioethics is highly controversial. Why? Because again and again, there are different ways of arguing or discussing these topics. So let's get to procreation and reproduction. Let's just talk about the terminology. Why is procreation a term? And why is reproduction a term? And I just want us to think about this for a moment. So we're talking about, childbearing, obviously. Procreation, the word creation is in it. So that means God is the creator and we are procreating. So it is a result of God giving us the ability to populate and subdue and fill the earth, as it says in Genesis. But reproduction sounds what? It's a product. Reproduction is more of what? A product. It's more of the secular word for it. So when we view life as a product, it becomes problematic. When we view life as what? A creation, it's aligning more with what? Christianity. So we have to be very careful in even the terminology that we're using. So we're not saying we're reproducing human beings. We're not machines and I want a baby with the blue eyes, 5'4", and people are getting into this, right? People want to get into what we call designer babies. I'm sure you've heard of this. This is the new stuff on the block or on the street. Why? Because we've figured out we've done the genome project, and we know things with the chromosomes, and we know things with DNA, and we could alter things and we could play with things. So now we could do even more body modification stuff. We could put a certain thing, and we could have eagle vision, or we could have, I don't know, something slowing down the life cycle, right? You could live to 300-400 years. I don't know, whatever they can do. The list is endless. So with procreation, we understand that God is at play, or he's involved. But with the production, human is at play. So there's artificial or assisted reproduction. So you guys know where I'm going with this, obviously. Why? Because sometimes people are having a hard time getting pregnant. So now we're going to get into the whole subject of IVF, and what is IVF and what does it mean? And so what does the church think or say, and what do we do in real cases? And I know this might not be a subject that we're involved in now, but it's good to know. Maybe you're training to be a doctor, and maybe God be with all of you, but maybe this is going to be a thing, right? We have to understand how this really works. So in the creed, what do we say? That Christ is what? Begotten and not what? And not created and not made. So the Son of God was begotten, not what? Created or made. So Christians have to have this clear understanding. There are techniques of artificial insemination in recent technology and ways of sperm donating from anonymous donors and so on, to inseminate a woman and to actually achieve what? Pregnancy as well. In vitro fertilization, as I said, IVF. It's a procedure where both the sperm and the ova are externalized in a laboratory, and then fertilization takes place before the fertilized ova and the embryos are implanted into a woman's what? Uterus. There's also something called PGD, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. What is this? To screen for any genetic or chromosomal defects before it being what? Implanted. So now you could also what? Screen for these things, and if something is not favorable or good for you, you can just what? You can just eliminate. You could just eliminate. Whereas before, if you had a Down syndrome child, you were going to have a Down and they couldn't know. There's cases and stories of all this stuff. And it comes back to the question of, is this a life that's worth living or not? And who's to decide and why? Is it a problem for the parents? Or would this human life say, I'm happy to be this way and thank God I'm here? You get what I'm saying? It's a very important topic. There's also something called ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection. A single sperm is selected and injected into the egg cytoplasm, and the producer that succeeds more in achieving fertilization than what? IVF. This is more successful than IVF, this procedure, ICSI. So it is not the same as achieving pregnancy which in turn is not the same as a successful completion of pregnancy in the birth of a child. You see, this is all done what? Prior to officially saying, I'm pregnant, right? This is also what we're talking about. So, ICSI, it is the first developed to deal with childlessness resulting from a male infertility. So, a lot of times we get into the discussion of, well, who's responsible for this? Is it the woman or is it the man? And then we get into all these debates or all these discussions. If I'm not mistaken, I think because this became such a big issue, right? Because bearing children is such a big thing, right? Especially when we're entering into marriage, people can't know. So what do they have to do? They have to do some sort of testing to ensure or see if this could be some sort of impediment or any sort of, difficulty. Do you get what I'm saying? Have you heard of this before? This is now becoming increasingly recommended. I think, especially in other parts of the world. Why? Because it is a great shame not to be able to bear your own children. So it's a cultural idea too. And not just that, but also people sometimes insist I have to have my own child, right? So they'll do whatever it takes to do that, right? They don't think logically anymore. They don't think about all this stuff. So it becomes a pastoral dilemma for the church. Why? Because this was never, again, I'm going to share both schools of thought, but don't be upset. This is the two schools of thought that's out there. One can say, one set of guidance can say, well, maybe it's God's will that you don't have children. And then there could be another school of thought that says, oh, we have technology and science that can help you do this. Go for it. Don't worry about what anyone tells you. You see what I'm saying? So these are two schools of thought within what? Same community or same. So it's a dilemma, right? And everyone has to deal with this sort of scenario if it is a serious matter for them and they have to decide what they're going to do, right? So these topics are very sensitive, obviously. So any questions or comments on what I'm saying so far? Let me take it further. Young women are also now using IVF technology to take an extra step in what? Freezing their unfertilized eggs. Why? Well, because now women are getting way more educated and they're finding partners a lot later in life. So they have a harder time getting pregnant because they're now winding off of their most fertile years. God created women to have children a lot sooner. So when we're talking about freezing eggs, this is now a huge other point with IVF. Yes, please go for it.
There are some exceptions that we see, like cases with, for example, cancer, younger age, at 30 or 25 or whatever, and they freeze their eggs because in case they they are in remission or whatever, at that time they're able to get the ovaries back because chemotherapy, everything can cause all the ovaries to die.
Yeah.
So there are some cases that like justifies why do you want to freeze the ovaries?
Yes.
I agree with you. Not all the cases.
Yeah.
Not because I'm professional and I want to pursue my life and my profession and then think about this is not a justification. But some cases, like for cancer, and I saw it. And for cancer, they freeze the ovary because they know that with the chemotherapy, with sometimes they do for ovarian cancer, they remove the ovary. They want babies afterwards.
Yeah.
Especially if they are younger.
Yeah.
So there are some cases.
Yeah. No, thank you for mentioning this.
And I don't understand, like, for this situation, what is the moral objection for this? Yeah,
Well,
why would somebody say that's not?
Well, because this is a potential what? Is it's freezing something and then basically having an insurance. It's basically insurance for reproduction. You're basically saying I can have a surrogate. I'm talking about the very specific case of what? Reproduction. So I'm saying something that applies directly to what I've been saying this whole time. This is where I would say it's a slippery slope. Why? Because now I have this option, and then I have this option. Even Pope Shenouda talked about surrogacy That's a very big topic. And we have actual cases in the field that talks about this. It was a huge problem, legal problems about surrogacy. I'll get to it. But what do you guys think? Someone out, um,
But I'm sorry for somebody that's
yeah,
really good at English. What is search?
it's when another person carries the child for a couple. So it's not the baby that belongs to this volunteer that donates their body to carry a baby for them. They implant someone else's child basically in them, and they deliver the baby. So surrogacy.
Those are very old issue though. That's just middle age. Like
Well, this is a recent technology, so this has now become a question or an advancement that's recent. So it's possible to do. Yeah.
no, I'm saying usually like the husband have a maid have give birth to take care of the child. That's certain agent.
This is a lady who is going to have another sperm, another ova from someone else, and she's
Or just like a
giving
random baby from somebody else in
to
the
someone.
estate.
She is the bearer of the child for 9 months.
Okay.
And she gives birth, and the issue after that is a dilemma. That she wants to keep the child, and they have contracts from before.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say this, but it's also become also like a luxury thing to do. I don't want to destroy my body, so I'll let someone else destroy their body so I could. Thank you. I want my own kid, but you can do the job for me. Like this is not normal. Okay, this is not natural.
The only story I keep thinking about is like Abraham and Sarah. And like if they had this technology at their disposal, Abraham's doing IVF with Sarah. Like, I feel like what she's saying about like, it's like control slash objectification of the body, right? Like it's like we can just put everything in a lab, petri dish, and
Yeah.
make life happen when we need it to happen.
So you guys are getting very warm to the issue. The issue is we're playing like God. We're playing God, and this is really dangerous. It's really dangerous to go this route, and it's also a slippery what slope. You end up thinking about things that are just problematic. So I like that you said that. All right. So should I keep going? So this induced, we also call our attention to the point of stem cells, right? Because the placenta apparently also carries with it a lot of stem cells. To Amani's point, there's also selfish reasons, or I could also generate more organs for myself somehow from all of this. So I could sacrifice others for my what? My benefit, right? It can go there. That's what I'm trying to say. It can go there. It can go down this very dangerous path. Okay.
But I'm so sorry. You disagree with like your own stem cells and your own.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying also the possibility of just heart like growing organs, or it can wind up being something like this as well.
Or going to make embryo in the big parts just for, I mean, to let the stem cell go into a direction or do something that is just for yourself. Or to kill an embryo for the sake of doing something like take some organs and that's it. This is a living being already, and you're taking it just for a case that you're trying to get out of it something to have a kidney or to have something for you're killing something to give other person life.
Yeah, so you're sacrificing and you're using other life to sustain your life, to preserve your life, right? So it could be very selfish.
Well, I'm sorry, because like, I'm talking about like people may have very bad knees, for example, so they'll take some stem cells, they'll inject it into that area, and because they're like these progenitor cells or like they're not the fully matured cells that would help there, they're actually young and free and able to like heal that place fully. Is there a weird dilemma there? Because it's extremely popular.
No, I'm not like again, I know there's a lot of cases. I know there's a lot of technical things I'm not versed in. I don't know enough about. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm talking about where it could go, how far and how bad it could go. I'm not talking about stuff. Again, some people would have huge issues with this in general because the principle is off for them. Do you get what I'm saying? Just in general, in principle, it doesn't make it okay for them. Like even Jehovah's Witness, for example, they don't accept blood transfusion. You know that? So they would rather die according to their religion than to take a blood transfusion because it's something within their religion. So there's a lot of things, you know, you have to understand why people, remember what I said in the beginning, you have to understand why people are behaving and deciding a certain way. Yeah.
I think like the issue with this is just like where the stem cells are coming from.
Mhm.
Like if they're coming from like an embryo that like extracting the stem cells is gonna kill the child, then that's like a little problematic. But if they're like bone marrow stem cells, then like that's a different story.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's what we're saying. There's a difference here. Yeah. I see a couple hands up. Go ahead, Evan.
What about even if using adult stem cells, say for like regeneration, for example, like
Mhm.
it's still like I guess developing technology, but there's like a possibility of regenerating
Mhm.
like parts of the body, entire limbs, for example. It's still like new, but what would the church's like view on that?
Like a standalone organ generation. Like I'm growing another heart here just in case backup, you know? Um, again, this is isolating it from the body, and God created things to be in union with each other. This is playing like this is I think this is getting into the area of gray and even maybe not very okay for Christians to accept as a principle.
But wouldn't most surgeries be on the order of playing God to an extent?
Surgery?
Because if you think about it, like any other uh, creature, even like early humans that didn't have any type of surgery besides like removing an arrow or something, you're trying to prolong life by a process that's not natural. Say it's not natural to cut somebody open to, but you're also trying to save a life.
Yeah, it's more of a repair than it is a creation, though. So when we use the terminology, creation is the issue. So or production versus repair. I think I think you're making a very good point here. This is actually the magic of this topic or the blessing of it. It generates great discussion, and that's why this is important to actually uh, go through a lot of these things or these scenarios to help us learn more about what my morals or what my position is, and we have to understand where is this coming from, what informs my decision. So that's really good too. And I have Safwat, and I have one, two, three, four.
On the same topic, there's an aspect.
Yeah.
So it's prosthetic hands and legs and
Oh.
limbs in general falls under the same issue as everyone else is
The
saying.
problem is how it comes. Again, we have to under a very simple thing. IVF. Couple go and physicians unfortunately don't say the whole truth,
Mhm.
and they say part of the truth, which is they can do it with one embryo, with one sperm and one ovum.
Mhm.
They have to do many so that the failure rate is high. So they kill 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 embryos ready to grow, and they keep only one.
Mhm.
This is the simple thing as IVF. Am I going to say no? Definitely IVF is wrong, or definitely IVF is right? It is a gray area. They are killing to keep life.
Unless you insist I have to be having just one.
chance, and it could be okay. It could fail.
And
So all of this, which is just what I wanna just trying to let you understand. I think we have to. This is I think something very very important to ask ourselves another question: how is not only what we want to do or the goal of what we do is, of course, every goal we're talking about is very good. Someone has cancer, we do full body irradiation. It harms the sperms, it harms the the ovary. No ova, no sperms in the future, so let us freeze. That's very good, and genuinely it's very smart idea, and I don't think science contradicts with life. If it is for the same father from the same mother, a sperm from here and an ovum here there, and we use them later on in life. Okay, but how are we going to do that? Or the end result will any bank of sperms or any bank of ova, and anyone wants the sperm from one and the ova, and just to take two and just bear a child, which she is not the mother, she doesn't know the father. All of these ideas is just leading us to a lot of dilemmas.
Hmm. Thank you, Abuna. Safwat.
Just along the line of Rob's question. So, like organ transplants, that's, for one, it is actually intervening with someone's life, not just prolonging. When you give somebody a new heart, that's like if a sperm is not allowed, what about a heart?
Yeah, so now we're in the field or topic of organ donation, which is a big topic as well. So it's almost like a piece of another person is living now in you. So it's also again a moral dilemma. We could definitely get to organ. I am very interested in this topic though.
My point is, I wonder if this is just a matter of the sciences are new to us and we haven't really understood it quite yet, and that's why we have a very hard line on it, or it's truly been studied through, and
Yeah.
that's a decision that is well informed.
Hmm.
I have to say that what Rob just said and what Safwat is saying is the role of a physician. The word physician itself is returning to coming from the word physics, physician, which means returning to nature. So all what medicine is doing is to try as much as they can to return everything to the nature that God created it to be. So this is the role of a physician.
Hmm.
So if something is sick and I'm trying to return it to the way it is before being sick, this is the job of the medicine. I mean medications I take, job of a surgeon to take the tumor out and to keep the normal part of the body, the role of any kind of living being.
I'm not also versed in this, but I think they achieved pig heart being
Yeah, that was recent.
that was recent valves.
Yeah.
So this is also another thing to Abuna's point. Is it like it's not even human now? You're talking about a pig heart. Uh, so again, this ends up going into so many things. Um, yes.
Yeah, you kind of like answered it, but I was gonna ask if like what Evan you said, like if you can like generate a heart and like give that to a person, like we're arguing it's different than a transplant because
Hmm.
the transplant heart was already existing.
Hmm.
That's
And
like
it belonged to another person completely. But also, there's mechanical hearts, right? Or right, or very.
Mechanical heart is very temporary.
It's a temporary thing.
Need some time
Now we're going to become like robots too, like with all this stuff. So half human, half robot. Yeah, it's very interesting where all this can go. I know it sounds very sci-fi, but it's actually real. Uh, yeah.
As far as I know, and that the church is not intervening with the donation, that organ donation,
Organ transplant. No,
Organ
no,
donation.
at all.
no.
I haven't.
It's not an issue
No, I'm
in terms of.
exactly. And even when you like get your driving license, there is a ban that you have to decide you can donate. يعني ربنا يديكم العمر كلكم بس you can donate if anything happens. That's legal
Mhm.
Is it with the church or against the church?
with the church.
Oh, okay.
Because if people are in need for a heart or a kidney or something, and the patient or the person is dying, and we know we run some tests and like on the patients knowing that he's dying 100%, and he had this like a stamp that he wants to donate. What's the point?
Yeah.
Is it really our body to do it?
Huh?
Is it our body to do it?
Baba, you're gonna benefit someone.
Fine, but it's not mine.
No. You have the ability. You have the decision to donate. It's your body. It's your body to donate.
But we're
And also, you could take this and stretch it to donating your body to research and so.
Another scenario, God forbid, if a mother and a father, God forbid, a son who's not at the age of taking a decision, and back to your point, it's not their body, and the son is dying, after an accident or anything. It's not their body. to decide, and very hard for a mother or a father to say, open my son to get his, which happens, by the way, and big respect for them, but for these parents. But the thing is, again, it's not their body to donate. I agree, but
Mhm.
the point is, if it's my body and I'm dying, and somebody needs my heart or needs my liver or needs my kidneys, and of no point I'm gonna be buried, and the organs are gone. Why
It is
not benefiting
just
someone?
to comfort you the idea that they cannot do it unless there is brain dead and the
Exactly.
patient is in the hospital. The body is full oxygenated. The blood circulation is very good. So he is brain dead, which is it is irreversible stage, so that they can take the organs without any doubt that he may come back to life. So this person is dead already, which is mean that the brain is flatline and there is no blood.
I'm not questioning the ethics of the process. I'm questioning, the church is teaching us that
Correct. Give
this
this
is
body to us.
not, this is
I will
not
not
our
die.
body,
I will not die
this
for
is
someone
God's
else.
temple.
I'm not going to die for someone else. The same idea. I'm already. So I mean,
Yeah.
like kind of someone dying and then keeping someone alive.
I think where it does get into some problems is at a funeral. If the body's not there, or cremation, or whatever, that's an issue, because there's the dignity of the human body, and it should be in somewhat of a presence or intact. So again, this is another topic. I think we're gonna go really off topic, but I'm okay with talking about it a little bit. But I'll take a few more, and then I'll dive back in.
Okay, I'm sorry, just before you get to like this particular, uh,
Yeah, yeah. Let her go first,
go
and
right
then
ahead.
you.
It's fine.
We actually discussed the Jehovah's Witness in
Yeah.
class, and I really had a question about it because I understand like it's their religion and their ideology, but like as like a Christian, like Orthodox doctor, and these people, the family, like not even the patient is telling you like, oh no, like they're gonna die because I don't want to do the blood transfusion. Like as like a Christian, like a moral obligation, do you just kill off the patient or do you do the blood transfusion?
Yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, there's a chapter in this book that says who decides. And I do think it's saying that they need consent. But again, how do you override someone's will? And what is a physician going to be held liable to if this is the standard? So it does enter into a legal dilemma in some cases. But I do think if it's clear, they have to maybe respect it. Again, I'm sure it depends how tough they are or clear they are on this point. I don't know. It's hard to tell because I don't know how that actually looks like on the actual like floor. So that's a big topic. Yeah.
So this comes up a lot in school. For Jehovah's Witnesses, if it's an adult and they say they don't want it, then legally as a doctor, you're not supposed to give it. If it's a kid, then you can override the parents' decision and do it. But I think her question was more like, what is the Christian perspective if you're a Christian physician?
If you're a Christian physician, I think it goes right back to the Hippocratic oath, right? And repairing what you can with what you have, and so I think it falls in that.
Unfortunately, we cannot follow the civil law. Civil law is very deceiving. I mean, the law of the country. Like you're talking about Christian morals.
So yeah, so I think
Mhm.
if you were to do that, you would probably get fired, and right,
Legal repercussions as well.
Legally.
Legal.
and more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, because you try to do the best thing you can for your patient, and obviously you want to preserve life. But let's say you preserve life, and then the family comes after you. Speaking from personal experience,
Mhm.
doing CPR on a Jehovah's Witness, that I endured a lengthy legal battle with the
Mm.
family to preserve life.
Mhm.
Somebody who was probably not going to make it, but just because I did that one action, it caused me significant financial heartache. So I think
Mm.
a lot of time you don't know. Like how was I to know that this person was a Jehovah's Witness?
Mhm.
But it's kind of how it goes. You try to do the right thing. Sometimes they can come back to bite you. But I think at the end of the day, if it settles well with your heart that you did the right thing, then the legal and repercussions and everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't want to open up a can of worms, but just like there's assisted life, there's also assisted suicide and death. So you could get into all the same way I started the talk, even in the context of war, right? You could say this person is suffering a very terrible way, and they're bleeding out, and let me just relieve them. Let me just shoot them right in the head. They're going to die instantly versus what? Slow death. You see, and this is also like playing like God. Why? Because we think we're doing mercy, and this gets really blurry too when we get to that topic. So assisted death versus assisted life, these things are very connected, by the way. Life and death are connected. So coming to life and leaving life are right at the same hinge. So I think it's a very important topic. And we're talking about life and death matters here. That's why this is important. That's why it's a very like a spiritual topic. It's not just like whatever as it goes or however it comes out. So let me just continue really quick. I don't know if we'll have time to get through all of this, but at least you guys are very engaged and interested, which is the goal, to be involved in what we're saying and really thinking and praying about it. But I'll just go for a little bit more and then I'll end soon. I'll probably have to do this in a few more parts, but that's okay. Um, Going back to the IPCS, it was even possible to take a male sperm and from that male sperm create, from that sperm and from a woman's cell or ova, make male cells from it, and meaning a child can be produced from one of the parent cells. A child could be produced from one parent cell, not both. Yes, this is so apparently with IPCS, you can do something where you only need one side and produce from them the two cells that are needed.
I think with a lot of these like issues that you're talking about, like
Mm-hmm.
surrogacy and like all of this stuff, like what you just
Mhm.
mentioned, a lot of like one of the main like side effects is that it undermines the value of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like now because of all of these technologies, like being married has like no like value to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
which is like against what we believe as Christians.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like birth control.
it's like birth control, which we're getting to, and someone could also deceive themselves to say, "I want a virgin birth." Right? That sounds great. Sounds like Saint Mary, right? I don't want to know anybody. I want my own child, so just implant it, and I'm a virgin and I give birth, right? So you said if you said this 2,000 years ago, they'd laugh at you and say you're crazy. But today, it's actually achievable. So I agree with you. But Saint Mary's a different story. But she's special and she's one of a kind. But now, when people, you're right, it's destroying the family structure and people thinking they can just do anything they want and have it any way they want. Let me just say there was a guy named Lewis Brown who was the first baby to be produced by IVF. Lewis Brown, first baby to be produced by IVF. He was born in 1978. Now, currently, there are 8 million children approximately worldwide that have been born by means of assisted reproduction technology. 8 million. That's a huge number. Nearly 2% of births in the US are a result of IVF currently. In some parts of Europe, it's about 5%. Also, we didn't talk about the expense of IVF. Do you know how privileged you must be to actually do this? It's again, if you think about it morally and stuff like that, it's also not like a thing available. It's not accessible to everybody. So now it becomes also like you're very fortunate, you're very wealthy, you're very capable. This is now a luxury item, and there's a lot of money involved rather than it being about other things. Anyway, that's a whole other side to it. Actually, there's a case from 2009. She sounds like an Egyptian. Nadia Solomon, 2009. She had a double, like I think she had like 8 kids because of this, and this became a huge thing that risked her own life. So it became,
The IVF.
yeah, yeah,
So that means they used all the ovaries.
yeah.
Without
Is it one time, Yehuna?
I think it was in one. I think it was 8 children in once. Yes.
So is that is that
So
is she used for you didn't kill
I have a question for you. I have a question for you. How important, it goes back to surrogacy, how important is it to be connected to the biological parent? How important? Do people agree and people disagree? How important is it to be connected to the biological parent? 100%. Very important.
But the IVF is not against it.
Yeah, I'm just saying if we get into the area of surrogacy and we get into adoption and we get into other topics with family life.
The adoption is against the church, or the church against
No.
no.
Maybe in Egypt it's illegal,
Yeah, but here.
but here it's not. But actually we are adopted by God. We're not we are his children by adoption, not by nature. So this is a Christian idea for sure, but we have to be aware of that. Yeah.
I think especially like with surrogacy, it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Because like there's like with
Mhm.
pregnancy, there's like a lot of hormonal changes in the body that like establish a connection between the person giving birth and the child. So like there's like oxytocin or whatever levels, and no, oxytocin, and then so like these levels establish a physical like scientific connection between
Mhm.
like
There's
the
a bond.
surrogate and the child. So when this child
Now you
is
separate.
separated, that like could cause negative.
So it's like there is a biological bond. I totally agree. Actually, there's a case that I'm going to get to.
The patient M, right?
Yeah, patient M. This one is a very important case. I'm going to get to it. So you know it, and that's good. But I'll see what Evan was going to say, and then I'll quickly wrap us up.
It's kind of like a weird situation, but like the church is against abortion, say, unless there's some exceptions if like the child threatens the life of the mother. But say in like a more extreme situation, not related to abortion, say like conjoined twins, for example, oftentimes uh, one twin might affect the health of the other, and sometimes one has to be killed in order for the other to live. Where would like I guess the church stand in that?
Yeah, very, very case specific.
Questions are very
Like very rare, but it can happen.
isn't that the point of bioethics?
Uh,
Like figure these things
Yeah,
out?
it does help to go as far as we can.
And another question that we repeat with every time we open the bio is in the case, guys, in the case of a rape.
Mhm.
So rape. So the
Mhm.
the after morning pill
Mhm.
and everything. And is it okay with the church or no?
So there's a lot to say about this topic, and I do think when I get to it, I will say more about it. But yeah, there's again what we would call pastoral exceptions that are very private, and they're not going to be said on a pulpit. So again, I think this is very important. I don't know because I never, had to be in a position like that. But there are certain cases where this can happen, and there's between the fathers it can be arranged. But what I'm trying to say is this is really important and sensitive because there is a difference between uh, it being early versus a lot more progressed. Some would disagree because IVF is also very early, right? Some argue this is not even life, but we're saying life happens at conception. So this is where we get into all these questions. So why would you wait so long to have right? This is a big point. I want to say that there's a psalm that says that children are what a heritage uh, to the Lord or of the Lord. We have to understand that this is a result of being in union with each other, as you were saying, and how it's so important to understand that the love that comes between husband and wife produces or results in procreation. God allows us to participate. That's such a great honor and gift. So it's something that we understand as God saying yes and blessing and saying amen to your decision to unite. And it's God saying yes, the result of a child. It is a self giving mystery. It is something that God shows us in Himself. So we end up losing the meaning of love. We end up losing the meaning of sacrifice. We end up losing what we call the communion of love. And so this is all very different when we get to have a third party player, right? You're involving a doctor, you're involving a surrogate, you're involving techno. So now something is getting in the middle of what? Something that should be just what? Between you, God, and your partner. That's the little circle. But once it gets bigger, opinions and ideas and this person and that person, it gets really more complicated. Now, I just want to say the point on contraception was opened, but this is a big topic, and I don't know if we should get into it now. But again, um, like Amani was saying, some people view the morning after pill as a form of contraception. The church would clear. Let me just put this because this is a very big point. No, no, no. So don't have unprotected sex and then say, I'm going to take the morning after pill, and this is a form of birth control. Please hear what I'm saying because this is so important. Um, this is really different. Why? Because now you're intentionally pleasuring yourself without the consequence or the result of what? Having the responsibility of a potential child. You see? So this is something I'm strong on, and I think Abuna and others would be with me on that. Um, but then there's other forms of contraceptives. So then you're going to say, well, can we do this? Well, hold up. What are we even talking about in the first place, right? In what scenario or in what case? This is a bigger topic, and we could definitely spend some time on it. What were you going to ask or say?
I was gonna say like it's not intentional. Like what if it's in the case of rape and you're like, oh, like is that?
No, that's what Amani was saying, and I think that is a different, scenario, and I think that's
It is very rare, very, very rare the percentage in the whole community. What is the percentage of rape in first normal pregnancy? And the other is one by one, case by case. It doesn't have to have just one rule to for all.
What's the difference between contraception and the day after pill?
well. So in the Catholic Church, contraception is a very big no-no in general. So they object to it simply because it makes sex possible without babies. So there are approved forms of contraception, or they call it the rhythm cycle, and they calculate this and that, and they decide that this is the most appropriate way of controlling birth. But the point here that I'm trying to make is uh, why is there a difference between these two? Well, it's just because if you use hormonal or barrier methods, this is avoiding what? Well, hormonal, there again, you can still practice sexual life without a barrier, and then it's the same thing essentially. So some people get into the whole thing about um, all these other options and how it's also problematic. So I don't want to get into too much detail simply because now it's going to be like, so what are how do we think about this and what are our options? I think that's very case by case too. Sometimes hormones are terrible for women. Sometimes our church is not. It doesn't have a clear, like explicit stance on this. It's very case by case. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Moses, the question is what's the difference between the contraception and the after morning pill?
Yes.
So
My question is, if you allow contraception, why you have a problem with the morning after
No,
pill?
contraception is very, very
Yeah.
broad topic. It could be IUD, intrauterine
Yeah.
device.
It's a long term.
This is also a problem that there is an ova and there is a sperm and there is a possibility that what you are not allowing to grow is already an embryo, that it is after the unity between the sperm and ovum.
Yeah.
And this is why IUD is not recommend it from the Catholic point of view, they cut it, and we logically agree with this because there is a possibility because of the presence of a foreign body inside the uterus, it prevents the implantation of a fertilized ovum.
So this is the copper IUD.
Yes.
So this is like a
Or any foreign body inside the uterus, which is like any IUD inside the, so it prevents a fertilized ovum. So this is why it is not. Hormonal, the argument is,
Mhm.
does it prevent the unity, the unity, that the sperm and the ova united together to make a zygote, or it will not allow this thing even to happen. By some people, they say electrically, it turns it instead of positive and negative, and they are easy to unite together. It makes repulsion between the sperm and the ovum, so there is no unity at all. Or if it is a lot of theories about how the mechanism is working. So this is what means sometimes it is okay, sometimes not for the pills, the hormonal pills that they take for every day, and then the after pill is definitely if there is any kind of unity between the sperm and the ovum, it passes away because of the high level of hormones on that morning after. So it is as if killing the.
Mhm.
Wait, I'm sorry. But the same drug that's used in the morning after pill is used in some of the
Exactly.
contraceptives.
Exactly.
And what that thing does is that it makes it so that there still can be that zygote. It's just that the uterine lining is shedding, so it can't involve
Implant.
it implant. So would you have a problem with
So
the same
so
contraceptive?
let me say something. I'm sorry to jump in.
No, no, no.
This is very different within marriage versus premarital. Please understand what I'm trying to say, because what I'm trying to say is in we already know what our church teaching and position is on premarital relations. We already know that. So whether you do it protected, unprotected, the whole thing is not right. But let's not make something worse than it needs to. You know what I mean? That's where I'm putting a strong foot down, because I think that's our responsibility to do that. But within marriage, this gets a little different. I know that sounds like double standards or not. No, but it's different now because this is within a marriage. This is different. Okay.
So sorry.
I'm sorry to jump in and
No. I just want to ask one like more of a meta question though, because I really like where you're going with like creation and repair, right?
production and creation.
Right. Sorry, production and creation, because I was like, that's kind of like a good framework for me to go off of. But then I guess, like you were saying, like even from the medieval times when they started the science, like it's like kind of like a dark past about like trying to create new science to even like heal people and help and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I don't know, like where do you kind of draw the line that science is doing good in the healthcare field and all these new technologies is benefiting the economy or saving life or something like that, and then where it's like I feel like that's almost impossible to like put like to narrow down.
Yeah, that's what we were saying from the beginning. If you remember how I started us off, I said the consequentialism and all the scenarios and the dilemmas you could be in. What I'm trying to say is we still have we should have some positions or opinions regarding these points as best as we can, where we have a theological rationale or a spiritual rationale. But it's not going to be like a final doctrine decision. And that's why this field or this area is very case by case, that you have to work with a spiritual father that you know, or someone you trust to help you in this. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say. That's kind of where I'm going with this. But deciding this on your own is a little risky. I just want to end with baby M, because you brought this up. This was the surrogacy case, baby M, 1986. Her name was Mrs. I think Whitehead and Mr. Stern. They paid $20,000 in those days, 86, to have a surrogate mother give birth. So that is Mrs. Stern to be the adoptive mother. And then they granted visitation rights with Mrs. Whitehead. And so now the question became, you have two mothers, right? Your biological birth mother and now your surrogate mother. And so this whole thing became a huge case and a problem, because initially they agreed to the terms and then they disagreed, and then the child wanted to go here or there, and it was a mess. Anyway, I think this is a good place to end. simply because what we talked about today, I think, gives you a little bit of more insight or awareness, as I'm trying to get us to see that this is complex. It's not simple for us to just think that we could play God, or that a physician could play as God, or that the technology or the science is now our God, and we have all these solutions and all these alternatives, and we change the system, and we don't realize the ripple effect it can have. Sometimes we're in the moment and we're insisting, I have to have this, or I have to do this or that, and then we don't realize the consequences or the ripple effect it can have in our life. Yeah.
So like in OCCM last week,
Yeah.
the talk was about like matrimony. So they kind of got into like the family life talk, and one of the things that they argue is that if you are married but you don't want children, it's selfish because it means that you want like the physical benefit of marriage, but you don't want to deal with the physical consequences, which is pregnancy.
This is a big problem. This is a red flag, and I like this. I like this point, and I think it is a red flag, and it should be a deal breaker if you discussed it premaritally, and if you were deceived, this is also a problem. So in our church, we have a lot of cases of this too. People withholding information about what their intentions are around children and how to achieve this. This is a big point. There has to be big clarity on this point premaritally, because if it's not discussed and you enter into this relation, then this is a form of deception and a form of problems. What if the other wants to have children? Now you can't have children because one of them says, "Well, I didn't sign up to have children. So what did you sign up for?" It's a big problem.
The argument is that like if like both parties
Oh, if they both
don't want kids, they consider it
this can also be, yeah, very selfish. And you know what the bottom line is, and I see this a lot, and I think Abuna will agree with me. What's astonishing is people that don't want to have kids, and people who want to have kids can't have kids. I see this a lot. So I want you to think about this a little bit, reflect on it, because it's very selfish. And what we take a lot of things for granted, and we think, I want to live my life, or we think, we're tempted to think that way. But then you look at the other side, and people are crying to have kids and they can't have them. So it's like, what do you do with all this? This is a big thing to think about. Yeah.
What if, like, in that case, like, they don't want to have kids, should they, like, not be married?
I don't think it's going to be like that. It's hard. I don't think. See, if they told the spiritual father this, I think the spiritual father or the one guiding them would tell them this is probably a risky thing to do, or a problematic thing. But again, they have their free will. Actually, I mean, there are some other extreme cases that are spiritual, and I don't want to say names, but there are holy people that got married that chose not to have kids. Okay? But they did it in a way where they were not having any relations at all. So that is in our church history. But that's a whole other thing. So I don't think that's what you're talking about. I think you're talking about they want to have the pleasure, but they don't want to have the children. That's a different story than having pleasure and the children. The same way we eat, it's enjoyable so we could live. So if we just eat, I was using this example from C.S. Lewis last week. If someone is eating to enjoy the food and then being bulimic and putting their hand down their throat and throwing up, it's like, okay, here we go. You have a moral dilemma. You're enjoying food, but you're not getting fat. Why? Because you're throwing it all up. This is not normal. Food, and it's nurturing, but it has a consequence. You can't just parse them and say, well, that's the issue with that. Yeah. Did anyone have any other questions or thoughts? I know we stretched this out a little bit longer than usual, but 9:30, I think we're very good at this point. It is a series, so if you guys want to keep going, we could do abortion next time. And then we could do, well, yeah, genetic advance, the Human Genome Project. What else we could do?
End of life.
Yeah, we could do end of life, parental screening. Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to talk about cloning. Okay. Glory be to God forever, amen.
But they're using it to make research on diseases and genetic disorders, but they're also using it to enhance.
Can 8 babies fit in one belly? No? Oh, yeah, I don't know how that happened.